part of us as well. You know, these guys are our cousin. I'm helping the culture. I'm pushing the culture forward in another way.
Hey, black child, be what you can be, learn what you must learn, do what you can do, and tomorrow.
What do you do after you read? What do you do after you know all, right? And you can say that you're truly conscious. How are you putting what you know into action?
Hey, sorry you all are a little late, but welcome to the New Black History Makers show, where we are here at the Good News Network. As you can see, I am not by myself. I'm joined by Chanel, who is no stranger to the good news. She is a co-host of Brunch with Bestie, so I'm definitely glad to have her on. If you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can see that the title of today is basically we're talking about the importance of Black educators. She's an educator herself and has worked from the classroom all the way up to an administrative role. So I had to have her come on. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, so we're a little late. The power cut off like 10 minutes before the show. We were all ready to go, but we're here. So hopefully the power doesn't cut off during the show. Right. I'm hoping that we're good, but I have no idea it's not even weird weather out here. It just cut off. So that's it, but we're going to get into it. So if you watch the show and you are on normally at the beginning, you know that we definitely do the check-ins, but then I also like to ask some type of like non-generic question that gets us thinking. So of course, let us know, how are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm good. Like I was talking to you prior to us starting the show. I'm on spring break this week, which is perfect timing because I'm able to have this conversation with you on your platform. So I'm so excited about that. But I have been relaxing because your girl has been going and going. So I didn't do anything this spring break, and that is how I wanted it to be. So I've just been relaxing, reclaiming my time, and not feeling so rushed to do anything. So that is what I have been doing. It's okay to not do anything sometimes, to give yourself that grace. So that is what your girl has been doing.
Right. Okay, so I love that. I was telling you earlier, like offline, that was the thing where I was like, okay, I want to have Black educators on, but I know that, just school time and all of that it's a little difficult. But I'm glad that you are on and able to join with us and make some time for sure, especially on your break. So thank you for that, because I know how them spring breaks go. It's like, I don't want to talk about nothing that have work, no kids, no nothing. So and then she's also in Milwaukee, so shout out to that. That's why she's not in studio with me. And I don't know if y'all be peeping the scene, I'm somewhere different, but I had to do some work. So I am at the sports station today and not at the regular TG and Talk One. So that's what's going on with that. But then the non-generic question is, what inspired you this week?
Oh, that's good. What did inspire me? Oh, there was a meme. So I saw a meme that says something I can't remember what it says verbatim, but it was basically saying like, allow yourself some time to rest. Like, don't feel the fake pressures of being rushed. So that inspired me. Not saying that, you need to be idle all the time. But I do think as Black women, especially as an educator like myself, like I've been going nonstop. Just aside from like my job, but like running my son back and forth to basketball and traveling and just doing everything, our podcast that we have. So just really allowing myself to rest and get as much rest as I need, because come Monday, it's back to the grind. It's back to my kids. It's back to their families. And it's back to going 100 miles a minute. So just allowing myself the time to rest, that inspired me this week, and not feeling like guilty about it.
Right. And I think that rest piece is so like necessary. And I know that you're a mother too. So how have you kind of just been able to like practically implement that in your, time and in your life?
So this week was like perfect. I feel like I got a glimpse of being like a stay-at-home mom because I was here. My son was here this week as well. So just, waking up, getting him ready for school in the morning, making sure he ate, got breakfast, got dressed, got on the school bus, like saw him out the door. But then I was able to come back inside and do what I needed to do. So I got a chance to work out this week. Like I was just on top of it, like feeding myself the right things. And then I would like take a nap, like get some more rest. And then I would get up and maybe run some errands or go get my hair done, like do some self-care stuff, things like that. But this week really allowed me to see, like, you have to learn how to balance it. Like, even though I didn't get up to go to work, but I still need to incorporate these pieces once I do go back to work. And how can I do that?
Right. No, I love that. I really do love that. So we're gonna go to not a commercial break, but we do have some ads. So for today, the picture is gonna cover Chanel's face. I'm like just announcing that. So I'm gonna put this ad up. So shout out to Compton Advocates. If you know me and know the work that I do a lot of work in Compton. So Compton Advocates is another dope brand and dope just community serving business basically, and they are having their next community roundtable on Saturday, May 14th at 10 a.m. at Youth Building Compton, which is located at 1108 on North Oleander. So they'll be having candidates from the June 7th school board election joining them. So visit ComptonAdvocates.org for more info. And you can also follow them on Instagram, but they're doing a lot with the elections that are coming up and a lot with elected officials. So even if you're not a Compton resident or if you have no ties to Compton, I think it's important to stay in tune with them because they provide a lot of information that kind of matters to every city. So not every city has a school board, but for the cities that do, it's something that you should be aware of. So definitely follow them, stay up in tune with them. Like I said, that their meeting is next Saturday. Not next Saturday. I'm messing this up. It's Saturday, May 14th at 10 a.m. at Youth Build. So we'll have more of that information on our Instagram, but please go follow them so that you can stay up with all the dope things that they're doing. So that is that first part. So we'll get into a little bit. Also, tell us about Brunch with Besties too, because I know you guys have been going. How many years has it been since you guys have been on air?
Thank you. For the plug. But yes, we've been going, I want to say it's been about 5 years now at this point. A little less with being a part of the TGN family. But yeah, we've been going. Shout out to you. Shout out to Keep Good News. Shout out to just everybody at the Good News network because, you know, y'all really are family and we're so glad to be a part of it, even though we're not out there with you all. We do it from Milwaukee, 414, go Bucks. So it's always exciting when we're on air, but it's going really great. We're doing some remodeling to our studio, trying to adjust to the new platform. But we've been making it happen. And, you know, you can always tune in to Brunch with Besties show every Monday at 5 PST and 7 CST. So yeah, be sure to listen to us. Thank you.
Yeah, shout out. So then also just tell us a little bit about yourself too, like what you do. I know that we know that you're an educator, but then like just a little bit more about Chanel.
Okay, yes. So I am an educator. I have been an educator since 2013. So slowly coming into my 10th year. Next school year will be my 10th year officially. So yeah, I've been doing that ever since I graduated from college. I have a bachelor's of science in early childhood education. So my passion really is like young children and young minds, working with the little people. I'm a mom. Like Jazz, you stated that I am a mama too. My son is 13 years old, so I have a whole teenager at my house. He plays basketball. He's actually in Louisville, Kentucky right now for a basketball tournament. So he is living his best life. So yes. Hopefully their team does well this weekend. I'm kind of like, I wish I was there, but Brunch with Besties is hosting. We're actually moderating a book release for another young lady that we had on the show. So we'll be doing that tomorrow. I am in a sorority. I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. I have been since 2015. And I just released a journal of my own called Single and Not Quite Ready to Mingle for, you know, those singles out there. It's a 30-day journal to make the most of your single season. So, you know, you could be single and happy and blessed and blissful and all of those things. So I just wanted to bring awareness to that.
Yeah.
So I wear a lot of hats, but today I'm wearing my educator hat. So I'm so excited to dive into this conversation with you.
Yeah, and you have Singles in the City too. Is that something that you're still pushing pretty heavy, or how is that?
Yeah, so I have the blog Singles in the City. So you can check that out at singlesintheCityblog.com. I haven't written a blog in a while. The journal kind of took over that, but there are past blogs on there about just my journey of being a single woman in a large metropolitan city. The ups, the downs, the wins, the losses, all of that.
Right.
It's all on there. So I'm pretty candid and I talk about everything. So it's all on the website.
Right. No, I love that. So yeah, please, tap in with her and the things that she has going on. Definitely go check out the journal. I think that's pretty dope. And I've been following Singles in the City since I've been knowing you. I think we've been knowing each other. Has it been like 5 years?
It might be.
Yeah.
On 5 years for sure when you all came here, for sure.
Yeah. So we went out. And then the backstory with how we know Chanel, or how I know Chanel, is you guys were the first syndicated show that was on the Good News, and we ended up going out there for some events that they had and some panels or whatever. So it was really a dope experience. And Milwaukee was like great, like especially because you coming from LA. You going into other places and you're like, it's not gonna be like LA, but there's a lot of aspects that Milwaukee has, and I'm sure a lot of like other smaller cities have that we here in LA don't have. So it was really just cool to see your community and how supportive, like even the people that we met that one time are still even supportive of like what I have going on. And it's just cool. So like Milwaukee's a dope place. Y'all don't sleep on Milwaukee.
Yes, don't sleep on Milwaukee. Now that the Bucks in the playoffs again, don't sleep on us. So
right.
We're trying to reclaim our title again. We're out.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I love that. So let's just get into the conversation. So you started off working in with the younger kids, and I know that that's interesting. So I also, for those of y'all who don't know, worked in education. That's no longer my thing, but it was something that I did love, definitely a passion. But I was working with middle schoolers. Mm-hmm. So you working with the younger kids, and then also we talked about it offline, but let's talk like demographics. So I know you said you started in North Carolina. That demographic was different from what you see now. Let's kind of get into that.
Yeah. So I actually, when I was in undergrad, so here in Wisconsin, when you're in undergrad for a teaching degree, you have to do like kind of these in-service hours or whatever. So initially I had wanted to do higher ed, so like middle school, high school. And then they placed me into a high school, and I kind of saw some things that, the kids were doing and getting to know them. And I was like, oh, no, like I need to reach the younger babies, because I felt like at that age, they were kind of set in their ways. They kind of knew what they wanted to do. And then I had ended up getting pregnant. So I'm like, what better way for me to like really see a mind develop than to have my own kid and to see that progress as an educator. So that's kind of what sparked me to want to do younger kids and work in early childhood, just because I had my own son at that time. And it was really interesting watching him learn and grow. So I started my educational teaching career here in Milwaukee. And I was working at a Catholic school here, which is in an urban area. If you don't know anything about Milwaukee, I will say Milwaukee is one of the most segregated cities in the United States. It is very, like, you can clearly see the segregation as you move through the city. So like where the Black people will reside, where the white people will reside, where Hispanic people. So we're really broken up in that aspect. And it's not anything that, this country doesn't know. But that's how it is in Milwaukee. So I was working at a Catholic school that was primarily in an urban area, kind of where I grew up, actually on the east side of Milwaukee, which is the east side of Milwaukee is a little more diverse than any other section of the city. Okay. So you'll have like mixed, like you'll have white neighbors and Hispanic neighbors and Black neighbors. So I worked in this area, but the school was primarily Black, low income, at-risk students. So I started my educational career there, and it was a lot working with those babies and, the communities that they came from and the families that they had, that they were with. So it was a lot of learning curves. Like, how do I address, like, just being absenteeism and, coming to school late all the time? Like, how do I address these kids, or how do I make it relevant for them to want to be at school? So that's where I started it. So just my whole platform, my educational platform, is just building relationships. And I think I've done a great job of doing that. So, I was teaching K4 And K4 parents are different. They're like the hawks. Like they want to be in the classroom. They asking all the questions. They come on all the field trips. So it was always interesting when we would do like open house or at the beginning of the school year that they would see that I was a Black woman, a young Black woman, like, oh, she the teacher. And they would instantly be like, okay, she got it. Like, this is good. So it's so funny that my very first class in 2013 are the exact ages my son is right now. So they're all 13. And I talk to all those kids all the time and their families, and I'll see them, and, you know, they're all taller than me, some of them, and they just grew up. And I'm just like, wow, like that's the impact that I had on their lives. And I get to see it because they're the same age as my son is. So it's really nice, the support that I've given to families and the support that I've gotten from families. Being a teacher is, I can definitely see like my impact is needed because you don't see a lot of teachers that look like me.
And then K4, that's kindergarten or?
Yeah, so here in Milwaukee is 4-year-old kindergarten.
Oh, okay, so is there like a K5 or?
Yep, so yep, K5 is like regular kindergarten, so you're 5-year-olds. But in Milwaukee, so that's another thing about Milwaukee, like we are really like on it with early childcare, so not just like childcare centers, but like early school. So we call it Head Start here.
Okay.
A lot of states don't offer that, or they'll offer like a half a day or something like that. But here in Milwaukee, you have full all day 4-year-old kindergarten programs where students who are 4 can come to school all day.
Okay, cool. So you were working there, and then I know you spoke a little bit about like the impact and what you had on the students. So what were you able to see like in practical ways or in like in the everyday kind of like working with these students where you being this Black educator was basically like helping them out or pushing them to be more successful in the classroom?
Yeah, for sure. So definitely the exposure of just getting them exposed to things that they would not normally see at home. So pulling them away from like the electronics or the games or just sitting in front of the TV, like watching a movie. But now, like, and I would talk to my 4-year-old students like I would talk to adults. Like there's no baby talk. Like I'm going to talk to you like a normal human being.
Right.
So just exposing them to that vocabulary. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to allow them to have conversations with me and to disagree with me or, you know, hear me apologize to them. So those things that, you know, they would not normally get at home, like I was trying to provide for them at school. And just offering them, like I said, different experiences. We're going to try to make this painting, or we're going to do this, or we're going to run outside, and just things that they wouldn't have got at home. Like I wanted to open that up to them at school to say, okay, well, these are possibilities. But I think most important is just me talking to my kids, and a lot of other educators would be like, you just gonna keep talking to them? Yes, because I want to know them. Like I want to know them wholeheartedly and not just this person is in my class, but I'm asking about your mama. I'm asking about your dad, your sisters, your brothers. What'd you do at home last night?
Right.
So I'm trying, and not to be nosy or getting any tea on them or anything, but I think if you show them that you really care about them, then you'll build more genuine connections.
Right. And then as far as your coworkers and stuff, was that predominantly Black spaces once you were in Milwaukee, or?
No, so my very first school at the Catholic school that I was at, it was all Black kids, but the staff was primarily white. White women. So you see a lot of that here in Milwaukee, white women teachers. You might see a sprinkle of white men, definitely like a couple Black men and a handful of Black women. So that first experience was a lot of like just trying, and this was at a time too, and I want to say, was it Trayvon Martin had gotten killed and I was still working at the Catholic school, and you know, some of the teachers were having discussions, and it's just like, well, you all don't understand like the full scope of what it means to be a Black man in America. Right. So me having conversations with staff members like, okay, well, I'm not going to be the spokesperson for all Black people, but I'm going to tell you how I feel on a certain situation. So it was a lot of that happening, and you can just tell like the kids would gravitate to me and some of my other Black female coworkers because we were just like them. Like I've gone to public schools in Milwaukee. I'm from Milwaukee, like through and through. So it's always nice for them to see people who really are them, you know, in a sense.
Yeah. So where were some things where you saw like the differences between the impact that you had versus the impact of like your non-Black coworkers?
Yeah, it was definitely like just the impact I had with those families, like being able to talk to families and relate to them. So, you know, you would have some teachers where parents just would not communicate with them, or if they did communicate, then it was always an issue or an argument, or I cannot talk to this family.
Right.
But for me, it was just talking to them, because for one, again, I tried to get to know the family, not just in school, but outside of school. So it was always easy for me to have those conversations. And, I would have parents come to parent-teacher conference, and we had events. Parents were coming, they wanted to help out in my class, and we were doing like a special project. Like, my parents were there because they felt like this really is a partnership with this teacher, and she really does care about my child. Right. So I think that is definitely what set me apart from some of my coworkers, of just building those relationships with those families, and they trusted me, and in turn I trusted them because I had their kid for majority of the day.
Yeah, no, I think that's good, because you only have them for a year, but then at the end of the day, like you said, the fact that they still are connected with you, or they still remember you, though, that's the lasting part, where it's like, okay, did I do what I was supposed to do in the classroom to make sure that you're progressing, the way that you're supposed to progress. So I love that. But we're getting ready to go on a commercial break, so definitely tune in. The Good News has a lot of different dope stuff going on, so tap into these commercials, and we'll be right back. Different dope stuff going on, so tap into these.
You can get a commercial slot 4 times a day, every day for a month. If you are interested, email contact@tgnradio.net for more information.
Hey there, business owners. Don't miss our limited time offer. Advertise on the Good News Radio as low as $2 per commercial slot. That's right.
Okay, you can hear me now.
Yeah, there you go.
A little bit the echoes. But we're back. Could you hear the commercials?
At the end, I can hear them, not at the beginning.
Okay. I don't know what's going on, but I heard them a little bit. But yeah, we are back. This is New Black History Maker Show on the Good News Network. We are here with Chanel talking about Black educators and the importance of that. So I wanted to get into the statistics that I always bring up, and something that I've noticed here in LA when I was working in education, is there's a strong push for like the Latin community because of the language barriers. And because there are language barriers, it's easy for them to push that, oh, the students are not able to learn in a certain environment because they're not able to understand what the words that are being said. And for me, I always push that that's cultural, and there are things that are barriers for Black children that are cultural as well, that are not connected to language. And it is connected to language, but because we speak English, it's like, well, you can understand what I'm saying. So the statistics that I posted with the advertisement for this show is basically that for Black students that have one Black educator before the third grade, there's like a 13% higher chance of them getting into college. And then that chance more than doubles to a little over 30% if they have two Black educators. So that's something that I think we should pay attention to. And it's one of those things, like, if they have those statistics, why aren't they pushing for Black educators to be in spaces with Black students? It's just one of those things where I'm like, if you know what the key is, then why are we sitting here acting like Black students are just not, able to perform at a certain rate, but pushing so much for other cultures and other students, which I'm all for. Advocate for the babies, right? But then also advocate for our children as well. So just, you can kind of like touch on that and your experience with that, what you've seen.
Yeah, so a couple things with that. So one being just the vocabulary and, pushing for that ESL type of background in education. So in Milwaukee, we do have a lot of that as well. It's just really depend, again, because Milwaukee is so segregated. It depends on where you are dealing with that. So if you're on the South Side, that's primarily where our Latino and Hispanic families will reside. So if you're in a larger district, you'll have a lot of like ESL schools, so English as a second language schools, and those things like that. Not so much in the city, like Northwest, where primarily Black families will reside. You don't see a lot of that. But I do agree that, it that affects our Black children as well. I just remember when I was in school and we would have to take like this assessment called like the Iowa Basics test. I don't know if you all had to take that in LA. But there was a part where it was like analogies, and analogies are my thing. Like, I love them. And I think that's just a test to me liking to read as a kid and seeing my mom read. So just picking up on different words. Okay, well, what does this word mean? So I just remember on the test where it was like, couch is to sofa is to like whatever, like trying to get you to understand that couch and sofa are the same thing. Yeah. And a lot of kids was failing that analogies part because they just did not have the vocabulary. Like, I don't say sofa at my house. Like, we say couch, and it is what it is. But just understanding that, Black people, we have our own vernacular too. And there's nothing wrong with the vernacular that we have. So, sometimes and not even sometimes, but a lot of times in my classroom, like talking to kids, I will use what's comfortable for me, that vernacular that's comfortable, that slang that most people will say, because I need to get through to my kids and they're going to fully understand. But I'm also going to give them the vocabulary, like the math vocabulary, the science vocabulary, and things that's going to build up their vocabulary. So I think as Black teachers, I do think that's special, because for me, when I was in elementary school, I actually had two Black teachers, like back to back. Like, my first grade teacher was Black and my second grade teacher was a Black lady. And I just remember coming to school and seeing them with like their hair pressed, or they were like super cute all the time. And I remember one lady one day, like, she came in and she was like, okay, well, let me like clean your face, like clean you up, and like really taking care of me. Like, I remember that as a kid, and that always stuck with me. Like, wow, like I want to be that to somebody else. And now, I'm not directly in a classroom, but I work as admin, so I get kids all day. Like, I'll just check on them, like, what you doing? Or they come to school and I'll see that their hair isn't combed, and I'm like, come in my office, like, let's have a talk. And I'll try to like get them together, because I know maybe something happened the night before, or, they were rushing. So those pieces, I think the importance of having a Black teacher is they get it. Like, we really understand, for the most part. We understand the situation, especially like me coming from the city. Like, I live in Milwaukee. I grew up in Milwaukee. Like, I understand the demographics and the things that's happening in the city. So yeah, a lot of thoughts about that and how that works. But again, I've worked at a school where it was primarily like Latino and Hispanic population, and that was a barrier for me. Like I couldn't do it, and I would just be honest with you. I knew that was not the teaching the school for me. That was not the teaching situation for me because I just didn't have the knowledge or the background to talk to those families. Like I was literally trying to use Google Translate to have conferences with my families.
Yeah.
It was a hot mess. And I was just like, we can't communicate because I'm typing in the stuff wrong and then they think something's wrong with their kid. And I'm like, oh Lord, like this is crazy. Right. So I knew my limitations and I knew where I struggled. And that was a struggle for me, like working with that demographic at that time. So I was like, stick to what you know and what you're good at. And I definitely
I think that's so important because you don't see that in our schools, you know, where you will, there's two things, right? Where there can possibly be a lack of Black teachers, meaning that goes back into the higher ed space of, are you guys making it something that's accessible for, you know, Black students for them to go into these programs and come out as teachers and do it, you know, the right way? Is that happening? And then you look at it after Black teachers have graduated, are you guys hiring them? You know, like that's a thing too. So and then why are you feeling like, well, we know why, but they hire, you know, other races to teach our kids. And it's like, that's not necessarily the right thing to do. But I think it's also important that you were like, this is just not for me. Like, I'm not able to be the best educator that I can be here. So maybe I should move somewhere else. And then you'll have, because I know you guys are, a Teacher for America is, of course, across the country, but is that something that you guys see a lot of too in Milwaukee?
Yeah, so we have a huge like AmeriCorps presence here in Milwaukee, especially when you're talking about like urban education and what that looks like. So we have a lot of like educational collectives. I know there's another one called City Forward Collective here in Milwaukee that bridges like Black and brown educators together. Right. I think the issue with it is, and I went to school specifically for education. Like I have a degree in education. Okay. And when I graduated from Alverno College here in Milwaukee, which is probably one of the top teachers colleges in the country as well, I was one Black person that graduated in my class. And that was in 2013, which is crazy. And, you know, you see, and it's not to make any excuses, but I think there's a lot of overhaul that needs to happen just in the industry of education itself. And one of those being is obviously the pay. Like you want quality workers, but then we don't have quality compensation. So that's kind of my soapbox on that. And, you know, as Black people, we're already behind financially and fiscally. So it's like, I don't know if I can do education because it's not going to get me to where I need to be, you know, financially and fiscally. So it is a hard push, but I will say the beauty about where I work currently is I want to say about 90% of the staff and the teaching staff and the admin staff that we have at my school currently, they are Black. We try to hire Black people. We try to hire people that are from the community, people that know Milwaukee, people that have a heart and a passion and a purpose for education. So, you know, I've been blessed to work at the school that I work at now where we see the bigger picture. Like it is important to have people that look like our students that we serve in the classroom. And not only in the classroom, but in maintenance, in childcare, in admin, like the principal, like everybody is Black and the kids see that, which is super cool.
Right. And then let's talk a little bit about, so when you were doing the K4, that one, you have predominantly Black students, right? But weren't necessarily working with your Black coworkers. They were non-Black coworkers, right? So then now you're in a place where you do have Black students and then Black coworkers, right?
Yeah.
So even for you, just being in this space, and I know like up and down, I know you're not in the classroom anymore, but like what has the impact been differently for you and how you've been able to kind of like perform or just be around with your coworkers and stuff?
No, it's been a learning experience for sure. Because again, this was my first experience with admin work. So essentially my title is the curriculum assessment and data coordinator for the school that I work at, but I do a lot of other things outside of that. So my primary role is to kind of look over the teaching staff and the school size. So the school that I work at now, we have childcare and we have school. So it's essentially a early childhood center is what we have. So we go from birth to third grade. And then the expectation is by third grade, you know, they can move forward and go to a bigger school that has those primary grades. But it was a learning curve for me of just trying to learn how to, okay, I was a teacher. This is what teachers do. This is my expectations. To now I need to kind of mentor teachers. And what does that look like? How do I get them to be next level? But it's been wonderful. Again, shout out to our executive director at my school who gives me a lot of autonomy to try different things. If I have an idea, she's like, okay, do it. I'll find some grant money for you and you can get it done. Like, you can do it, which has been really dope because I've never seen that in any of the schools that I work with. Just your leadership is so supportive and trusting of the ideas and the work that you can pour into the organization. But it's been wonderful just watching our teachers grow and work with the kids and just really being advocates for our kids and our families has been amazing to watch. So I get to like kind of observe classrooms and observe teachers. But outside of that, like I spend a lot of time, like, because we have a small organization. So if a teacher is not there, like I'll step in and I'll sub for a class in a minute. Like I still have that teacher heart. Like I got it. Like I can go in a classroom and make it work. This is what we're doing today. These are my expectations. And the kids, they know it too. They know, like, if Ms. Warren is in the classroom today, I know what we are about to do. We're about to get to work. So it's definitely been a learning curve, but been really, really awesome working in a space where it's primarily Black people that work there, because everybody has the same underlying goal that we want to be advocates for our children and families.
Right. I love that. And then as far as like the success of the school and what your students have been able to do, can you kind of like speak to that? Just seeing, I mean, I know personally when I've worked in some Black schools that are out here, when I compared them to some that weren't being ran by Black, admin or Black teachers, it was like a difference in the success rate and what the kids were able to do. So if you can kind of touch on that a little bit and how the kids kind of like interact with y'all as well.
Yeah, so we're still growing as far as like academic achievements are concerned. Our school is really small, still fairly new to the Milwaukee area. So we are working really hard, but I think what sets us apart from a lot of the other schools is we offer so many resources to families. We have so many partnerships that allow our kids to be engaged and exposed with other things. So we have a partnership with like a nature center, and we do arts and literacy work. And, our kids get to do tennis that's built into like trauma work. So it's so many other opportunities that we're trying to provide for our scholars, just not like just academic based, but we want them to be well-rounded. And I think that's the start. Like that's how you get kids to achieve, is you have to give them other opportunities and let them explore and engage in different ways, and not just your typical cookie cutter type of school. Like we're going to do X, Y, Z. We're going to take this test and everybody's going to do the same thing. So we don't do a lot of that at the school that I'm currently at. I give my teachers autonomy. If something does not work in your class, you have full free range to do it. If you need like supplies or something like that, like they're able to ask for whatever they need. And I worked at schools where we didn't even have printing paper at one point. So it was rough. I worked at some schools where we didn't have supplies or anything, but at the school that I'm currently at, we make sure our teachers have everything and above of what they need for their classroom. So each classroom has iPads and technology and smart boards, and you don't see that at Black schools. You don't see those resources. So again, I'm thankful for our executive director because she makes it happen, and she finds the government dollars to make sure that we have everything that your suburban school or your non-Black school would have, and we have all of it. So just trying to make sure that we continue to expose our kids to different things, and it's showing in the assessments and the work that they're able to do now. And since I've been there, we've been steadily growing academically, which is great. And I would tell our board members, like, give me 5 years to get us where we need. So I'm coming on to my finish line. Like, okay, so by year 5 next year, I need to show some really big results. But I'm very impressed with where we are today, especially coming off of 2 years of a pandemic and trying to do virtual learning. But 100% of our kids come to school in person. even last year, we had most of our kids come to school in person because they knew they needed to be in that space where it was consistent, it was safe. So yeah, it's been a roller coaster, and I'm learning every day as an admin person. I'm big on feedback for myself and how I can be better. So every year I'm trying to look and be better than I was the year before.
Right. And let's kind of switch lanes a little bit, because we did talk about you being a mother. So with you being an educator, how do you kind of like navigate the space as a parent with, you know, having a son that's, because is middle school?
Yeah, he's in seventh grade. Girl. Now that's when it gets funny, because when he was younger, you know, it was easy. Like when he was in elementary school, I was like, okay, I got this. Like I know. But now that he is in middle school, and the math and some of the stuff that he brings home, and I'm just like, call your dad, because I can't help you. Like, call your dad. But it's been kind of that struggle. Sometimes my son, he will roll his eyes like, okay, like we not at school. Like I don't want to do this with you. Like I just want you to be mom and not, you know, educator mom.
Right.
So I totally get on his nerve, where I'm like, okay, when you get home, you got to read for X amount of minutes. You have to study for your math test. And he like, but I just want to be a kid and play my game. Like, wow, like I don't want to do this stuff. So it's trying to find the balance, but also since I know kind of ins and outs of education and just trying to do what's best for my kid. So, you know, I just recently switched him to a different school district. So it's been a learning curve there of trying to get him situated. But since I know what I know as far as education, like when I see something that's not right, I'm quick to reach out to other admin like, hey, like, I don't like what you all are doing. And if you all need some assistance with, you know, DIE or diversity and equity and equality or whatever, like, reach out to me. I'll help you guys, because what we're not going to do is nothing other than what's expected for my son to have to make him feel comfortable. So there's been a lot of that happening with the district that he's in right now. But I'm glad I know what I know, and I can advocate for my son to make him feel comfortable in whatever school that he goes to.
Right. And I love that. And I also want to just like encourage parents too, because even when I worked in education, there was a lot of like advocating that I had to do on the back end or in PDs or, you know, in just private meetings or whatever, advocating for the students or checking like my coworkers on the way that they were speaking about our kids, because they didn't understand them, whether they were Black or non-Black. You know, we have complexes too. So you can definitely like advocate. I'm, you know, I don't have kids, but I always tell parents like, you know, do your research before you send your child to a school, because you really don't know. And we got a lot of parents, because I worked in the inner city here, that were like, you know, I'm calling them, I'm like, yo, your child is wilding. They've been wilding for a few days. I mean, for a few weeks, but I've been trying not to call you. And they're like, my child would never. And it's like, well, because you're sending them into an environment that's not conducive to how you're raising them. So they're not really able to like battle back and forth. But I'm like an advocate of like doing your research, going in. If you see like, you know, like Chanel said, if you see that something is wrong, go in there and say something about it or ask about it, see how it can be changed. Like you don't need to have the educational background to go ahead and do that. And quite honestly, if you aren't aware of where your child is and you're kind of just sending them wherever, you probably would be shocked to see what happens in the classroom. If you have no say on, you know, what's going on, or if you don't really know the types of teachers that are there, you're going to be shocked about what your child is doing when you're not around. But then if they're in an environment that's just not conducive to the way that you're trying to raise them, and they're not around like just in a positive environment, it can really affect, you know, your child. And we're not even talking about educational stuff. Like this is character. This is, you know, who they are like behind closed doors, you know, the things that they're being exposed to. All of those things matter. But I heard so many parents that were just like, oh, my child would never. And it's like, well, your child did. And your child continues to all the time. So, you know, maybe we need to have a conversation. And I've even done it too, where I knew that a child should not have been, and it doesn't happen often, but I knew a child shouldn't have been in the environment. And I've written like just notes that were anonymous, like you might want to, you know, check your child out and get your child somewhere. Because some children can be in the environment and still maintain their character or still maintain what you've been teaching them. But there are some cases where you just have really timid kids, and, you know, they'll get, you know, turned out like for the worst, essentially. So that's just something where I'm like, parents definitely need to advocate for the environment of their children. And then also, if you can touch on like kind of, you don't have to touch on the actual situation, but you deciding to take JR out of the school district and put him somewhere else, like just what were maybe some things that you were like, okay, this isn't right, and then you also like deciding to do that? Because I think a lot of parents kind of feel like it might be too much, or it isn't worth doing.
Yeah, I've definitely had some mommy guilt regarding this whole situation with him. But he was just in his school. So from 4-year-old kindergarten till about 6th grade, it was like 5th grade, right before the pandemic happened. JR was going to this small private Lutheran school here in Milwaukee, which when he first started going there, it was primarily white. But as he progressed, and by the time he was in 5th grade, there were a lot more Black families, which was cool. We started to kind of build a network, and all the Black families knew each other. It was cool. But I just felt like at the time that we needed to make a change because just academically, I feel like JR could have been a lot further than he was. The school was heavily focused on like doctrine and like the Bible, which is great too, because that builds character. But I'm like, we needed more academic rigor. So I decided to pull him from that school. And he ended up going to a school in the district that we lived in. So in Milwaukee, again, it's segregated. You have all of these suburbs, like kind of and villages mixed into the larger metropolitan city of Milwaukee. So we kind of lived on the outskirts in a village called Brown Deer. So I ended up switching him to that school district. And it was just, for lack of better words, a hot mess, because my son, again, came from the small private school. So now he's in this big, like larger public type of school. And it was kind of like Eastside High. Like if you've ever seen Lean on Me with Mr. Clark, like that's what it reminded me of. And I was just like, again, and you talked about adaptability. So you can have like this sweet, like innocent kid, but when you put them in this environment, they're going to adapt to that environment that they're in. And I just saw, my son's behavior start to deteriorate and his grades started to deteriorate because he was having a good time. He ended up playing basketball for the school. So people kind of was treating him like a star at this school. And I was like, hold up, like, you're not Kobe Bryant. Like, no, like, we need you to do the work. And I need you to be, you're a student athlete. Like, student always comes first. So he was really struggling, and a lot of it was JR. Like, I'm not even gonna say it was the school, but a lot of it was just him clowning and cutting up and being around and adapting to the kids that he was now around. So I ended up pulling him from that school, and we ended up moving to another district, so kind of up the road from where we used to live. But now, again, Milwaukee is segregated, so now you have this other type of city, village, town, and this one is primarily white. So we might be a handful of Black families that live in this area. So I switched him to this school. And of course, it was a culture shock to him. Like now, I'm going to this school where the school that I started at was like kind of mixed. Like you had some Black families, some white families. And then I went to like an all Black school. And now I'm in this all white school. So it's been a culture shock for him, to say the least. And then I had to step in and, like I said before, be advocate for my son and say, okay, well, I don't like the way these kids are approaching him. I don't like the way this teacher is talking to him. Like I was constantly having those conversations with the principal. Like I'm an educator too, and I'm going to advocate for my son to make sure that he feels comfortable in this environment. So we're still adjusting to that, and he's still adjusting to that. And I still have a little bit of mommy guilt, like and I tell people all the time, like as Black people, it's not always a flex to send your kid to an all white school. Yeah. And that's where I feel like I have to come in to be an advocate, to teach my kid that you are Black, you should be proud about it. Yeah. I need you to immerse yourself in Black excellence and Black culture all the time, which I do. And, me and his dad do that for him. So I'm thankful that he has a foundation of that. Yeah. But, the kids, and some of them are just really like, they treat him like he's this star, like, because I think he's the only Black boy in 7th grade. Wow. So then he's this athlete, and the kids are kind of just following him around, and he's like, everybody wants to be my friend, and I don't want to be their friend. And I'm like, okay, you don't have to be their friend, it's fine. Right. Yeah. And I said, you have to use some discernment with yourself to say, okay, all y'all not my friend. Like y'all just like me for what I can do. So I have those conversations with my son. Like, this is what it is. This is it. Right. But ultimately, I know he's going to get a great education there, like flat education, not necessarily like Black culture and Black excellence. And that's where his father and I come in to have to supplement to teach him those things or expose him to that.
Right. And I want to continue that conversation. We're getting ready to go on a break. But before we go on to that break, we have another sponsor. So this show is also brought to you by Jazzy Sweets and Eats, where you will taste the difference because everything is scratch made, old school, and small batch with premium ingredients like high quality butter, extracts, and free range eggs. So you can definitely check out what they have going on their website at Jazzy's sweetsandeats.com, and then you can follow them on Jazzy Sweets and Eats on Instagram. So it's JAZZYSSWEETS and then also, if you are interested in advertising your business, we are running a sale. So it's $5 for each mention. Some people have locked in mentions for the month, or they just got one if it's an event. So regardless of what you do, if you offer services, if you have a book, if you have a bakery, or if you're just having an event, like we said earlier with Compton Advocates, where they're doing stuff for the community, but they still were able to like capitalize on our sale, definitely DM us at New Black History Makers, and you can, capitalize on all of this marketing and stuff and get in. So that's it. I'm trying to get these the time
Yeah.
the breaks. It's always like so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna jump in right here or whatever. So if you're watching and if you've been on watching for the show, you can hear that we have like some really dope commercials. They're like really professionally done. So they count us down into them. So I don't send us into commercial break. We just automatically have this time. So it's always weird if you don't get the timing right. But
yeah.
Low as $2 per commercial slot. That's right. Promote your business up to 4 times a day, every day for a month on live radio. If you're interested, email us at contact@tgnradio.net. Once again, that's contact@tgnradio.net.
Yo, Jerry, what you sipping on?
You already know, Mike. It's michelada time. Flavorful, handcrafted michi mix to top off with your favorite cerveza. It will have you saying, wow, baby, at every drink. Michelada time is freshly made in small batches, bringing you the perfect michelada every time.
The streets are talking, Jerry. That michelada time is liquid gold. Where can I find it?
Check out our website at www.micheladatimemix.com. That is MICHELADA timemix.com. Follow us on Instagram at michelada_time for new.
Me. Got to turn the mic up. But yes, we are back. This is New Black History Maker Show. Here with Chanel, and we are at the Good News Network, talking about Black educators and the importance of that. We talked about impact, and then also we were getting into a conversation more so for Chanel as a parent. So we're just going to continue that conversation. But thank y'all for tuning in and rocking with us. And you can also follow us at New Black History Makers on Instagram. Check out, we have merch. I always forget. I got merch on right now. But yes, please go to newblackhistorymakers.com. We're in stores. So Unloved LA, which is on Melrose, and then also in the Fox Hills Mall. You can find us at Uplift This Marketplace. We have a whole bunch of stuff there too. So definitely support what we have going on and go get you some fly merch. But more about the conversation about you being a parent of a student, of course. How has he had a lot of, or how many Black students or teachers has he had, if any?
He has not had any Black teachers. Yeah, no, he hasn't had any. I mean, he's had some like educational assistants, not any like lead teachers when he was at the Browns Deer School. There was some like kind of co-teachers and, teacher aides and things like that at that school. But as far as lead teachers, my son has not had any Black teachers outside of me. He hasn't had any.
Right. And is that a conversation that the team, because I know growing up, having a Black teacher wasn't something that I thought about until I became an adult. And it was like, oh, wow, I know I had a few, not even a few. I know I had some subs. And I know in like 7th grade, I had like a Black English teacher. But until like maybe a few years ago, it was like, wow, I haven't had, any Black students or Black teachers. So is that something that he brings up, or?
No, and I think he's still in that kid age. Like he hasn't made a discussion about it or said anything about it. But and I know it might come once he has a Black teacher, because when he was in 5th grade, he had his first man teacher. Okay. So that was the first time he had like a male teacher, and he was like stoked about it. Like, my teacher is a man. Like, we talk about sports. Like, he felt like he was seen in that class finally. Like, now we could talk about things that are of interest to me. Right. So I think once he has like a really dope like Black teacher, it'll definitely like change his whole mindset about what it is. He hasn't had one yet, and I'm hoping that he will have one. And that's why I'm thankful for sports, because a lot of his coaches are Black, and the people like Black men that he's interacting with all the time, which is good. So I do hope soon he comes into a really great, qualified, awesome Black teacher, whether it's a Black man or a Black woman. Right. So we're starting to look at high schools now. So that's definitely a part of the search and the requirements.
Right. No, I love that. And then also back to you as an educator, I know that we talk a lot about what the other side can do, but I know for me, when I was working in schools too, there's a big part of like a job that we have as a community, and I think sometimes we drop the ball as a community working with students or just having school age kids in our families and stuff, and we're not doing right by them. So like, what has been your experience with the struggle between parents or the struggle between community and trying to like push them to see like, okay, no, we need to be doing this to provide more opportunities for success for our students?
Yeah, so it's exposure, kind of like leading them to the water so they can't drink, for lack of better words. So again, the school that I work at currently, we do a lot of family engagement. I'm on spring break, and my coworkers and my boss, they all email me like, you need a flyer for our family engagement next Thursday. I'm like, okay, cool, I got it. So we do a lot. So we bring them to the water to say, okay, well, these are some skills. So one time we had one where we had St. A's, which is a company here that deals with like social emotional therapy and work. So we had them come in and teach our families, like, how do you get your kid to calm down? Like, what type of coping strategies do you all use at home? Here's an actual kit of materials that you can use at home when your child needs to calm down, or, you need them to feel supported or encouraged. So really exposing our families to that, because again, in our community, we don't know what we don't know. Yeah. So we can expose them to things and kind of open their eyes to it. So and sometimes, our family engagements are heavily supported. Sometimes not so much. We had a local judge in our city come and talk to our families just about racial disparities. Wow. And we had a lot of families sign up for that. So just trying to expose them in different ways. And next week, for family engagement, we're going to have our tennis partnership come in and do some tennis activities with our family. So just exposing them to things that they would not normally do with their kids because they don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of our families are young people. A lot of our families are younger than me. So again, I work for a early childhood school. So our highest grade is 3rd. So a lot of the moms and dads, they're younger than I am. So just exposing them to, you know, be better parents and having those real conversations with our families. Like, okay, well, I see you doing this. Like, here's some resources for this. Or we also have a therapist that comes in our school that does like health and wellness with a specific tier of families because we're really serious about their social emotional well-being and the whole kid. So it's going to start with, you know, their families and partnerships and, you know, social emotional wellness is what we try to incorporate. But again, if you don't know something, you don't know it. And you're probably not going to ask about it either because you don't know. So it's us trying to get them to come to the water to drink, to get the resources and learn, you know, different things about how to be a good parent and what your child needs to be doing at home and things like that.
Right. Yeah, that's dope. I really love how you mentioned the social emotional wellness. Can you talk a little bit on that and like what the initiative and the push is with that at your school?
So the school that I work at, they've been doing it since before I worked there. So again, I'm almost 5 at my school. So they started a little bit before I came. So we work with a therapist who comes in every Monday and Wednesday, and she'll have a caseload of students. So how students are referred to her is that the teacher has to put in a referral. Then she reaches out to the families to say, okay, hey, can I work with you and your child about their social well-being? And she'll do like tests to see if they have like ADHD, if they have like opposite defiance disorder, things like that. So she'll do the testing that's required for them to give them the tiered work that they need to have. And my school also has a student support coordinator. So our health and wellness therapist works alongside the student support coordinator. And then sometimes I work with those families as well because I know all the kids by name. I know all their parents by name. So I'm just kind of like the liaison from the school to home. And yeah, she pulls them out every Monday and Wednesday they come if they're having like, you know, we work with some severely traumatized students, and I'm gonna be honest about it. So some of them come to school, they're like screaming, or you know, they want to fight, and these is little kids. Like I work with the babies, so they have a lot of work that they need to do, whether it's you know them socially, emotionally, and with their family. So the therapist, she comes in and she'll do one-on-one work with them. She comes up with a plan for them to be successful in their classroom. She does daily reports. She goes to these families' houses. She'll meet them for coffee. She takes kids home. Like she buys kids clothes or whatever they need. I mean, going above and beyond for families because sometimes that's what people need. They just need that support of somebody to help them along the way. So when we say we want to help our families, like we don't just mean at school. We mean all the time. Like you can call us anytime.
Right. And do you feel like that's why you have, is the participation of the parents high, or is it something that you guys are like pushing for them to come out to more? Because it seems like they're coming out.
No, our parents will show up. If our parents don't do anything else, they show up because they know what they're going to get is something that's really for them. We want this to be beneficial for you. We don't want to waste your time. Yeah. And I'm not saying other schools, you know, waste kids' times, but sometimes I'll go to stuff in my son's school and I'm like, this could have been an email or a PowerPoint. Yeah. But like, we really want you to get something out of it. So, you know, if we have people in the community coming to do financial wellness, financial literacy, tax services, like we want this to benefit you because again, we know sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. And we want to give our families those resources. So we don't have a problem with getting our families to come in and be supportive, just because that's the foundation of our school. And we do a lot on, I don't know if you all are familiar, but we use Class Dojo, which is like it's kind of like social media for kids is what I kind of equate it to. So you can like send messages and share stories and posts and things like that. So that's kind of our way to communicate with families. And we literally have about 98% of our families signed on to Class Dojo where they're getting messages, they're getting pictures and day-to-day notes and messages about their child. And that's school-wide. So in our child care as well as our school family.
Okay. And I love that. And I think that's a note for other administrators and other people that are principals or whatever, to invest in the parents. And then you will probably see like a return investment on them coming and showing up. Because I know here I've been in a lot of conversations where it's like, oh, Black parents don't show up. And it's like, well, one, you have to be mindful of scheduling. One, you have to be mindful of how many kids they have. And if you're in a district and you guys are having open house on the same night, and it's like, yeah, you're going to see a low turnout because one may have a middle schooler, one may have, a high schooler, and one may have one in elementary. And I think sometimes they push that as like, oh, well, if you have that many kids, then in the Black community, it's like, well, why do you have so many kids? But it's like, my mom is married and had 4 kids. And at one point in time, we were at 4 different schools in the district. Yeah, so it's not even a thing of like being irresponsible. It's just people, you can have kids. And if you're like being mindful as educators or as administrators and wanting like for people to show up, it's like, well, let's be mindful of what's happening across the district, what's happening in other, spaces and stuff. And then are you guys do you guys, oh my God, why am I acting like I don't know what this is? Are you guys connected to a district or are you guys like a charter?
So we're fully private. So we have like a liaison with the larger district to get like title services. So we use a larger district for that. But however, we run by a board of directors. So our school has a board that is kind of our government for our school. So yeah, we're funded through other government funding, but we're a private school.
Right. And then as far as like the experience that you had in working in these different schools, and then of course being at the school that you are now, like what is kind of like something that you want to see in the future with yourself or just with like the educational kind of like experience as a whole?
Yeah, so I think I say this all the time, but I think I am ready to be a principal and to move forward in, my educational journey. I would like to maybe one day in the future to be like a state superintendent or things like that. Just because of what I've learned under my executive director, like she does a lot. She allows me to experience a lot of things that a lot of people in my role wouldn't know how to do, or, we wouldn't even have to do for the most part. So I think I'm equipped and I have the tools necessary to even run a school myself. So, I mean, there are some things that I still need to learn. But I do think as far as next steps, always thinking like, okay, well, what's next in this educational journey? That will probably be my next steps of moving forward towards like leadership as far as principalship, and state superintendent and things like that. So that's kind of where I'm going. It might change because I do love what I do right now. I love working with teachers. I think I would also love to go back and work at a university to get more, teachers of color and not just teachers of color, but Black teachers primarily in the classroom. That would be super dope if I could do something like that.
Right. And then let's backtrack. I don't know if I asked this already, but like your desire to get into education, was that just something that kind of sparked when you were younger, or did you always know? Did it is something that switched once you got into college, or?
Yeah, girl, it definitely switched around. I mean, when I was younger, my sister and I, we would play school, from time to time. Like if we were out of school, we'd be like, oh, let's play school. Like, let's be the teacher. We would always like end up at lunch, and that was kind of the school. Like lunch was the best part for us.
Right.
So doing that. But it wasn't until I got pregnant with my son and I was actually in undergrad at the time going to Marquette. I was like, I want to switch over to education. And I was also working for a pre-college program here in the city on Marquette's campus. So I was working with high school age kids, which started my educational journey of wanting to do middle and high school age. So working with them, I feel like I've always had great rapport and great relationships with young people. Like I don't mind talking to them. Again, I talk to them like human beings. It's not any of this baby talk or anything like that. Like I want to know you, like who are you and what do you like to do and things like that. So that really sparked it of just having my own son and wanting to teach him and watch him grow up. And I was like, this is really like dope to see this and to see this Black boy like learning things and being good with numbers and, wanting to read books and things like that. So that sparked me. And then I later switched to early childhood education because I just felt like, I think for me, I would have a bigger role in the success if I caught the babies younger, versus trying to target them in middle and high school. Like I really have my hand on molding, you know, the leaders that they'll be in the future by having them at an early age. And that's always my hope. And my goal is when they are adults that they do remember me. Like I remember Miss Warren, and she was a great teacher, and you know she was good to me and my family, and I feel like I learned so much under her. Like that's always the goal when I see like past students. Like how are you doing? And to watching them learn and grow, which is super cool. So yeah, that started my educational journey. It was never like, oh, I want to be a teacher. Like when I was an undergrad, it was like I want a job where I'm gonna make money. Yeah. And I kind of fell into this one where, you know, education is not for the money. It's all for the love of it.
Yeah, it definitely is. So also let's kind of talk about like one of your, I guess, proudest moments as an educator. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can kind of like touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that would definitely be this school year. Again, my executive director, she just is a phenomenal lady. I cannot say, you know, better things about her, but she allows me to really use my voice and to let me try different things. So this school year, with the pandemic happening, it was really important for us to continue to challenge our kids academically and make sure that they were still kind of moving forward and progressing.
Yeah.
So we started an initiative to have the kids come on Saturday to do like a Saturday school, which we had not done before. So this was something totally new for our school, but it's been going really well. Like the kids that show up, like they want to be there. They're actually like night and day from like regular school versus Saturday school. Mm-hmm. And that's because, you know, it's intimate. It's not that many kids that come, they get the one-on-one support that they need, right. But it really shows up that, you know, when they come back to school Monday, it's like, I kind of remind them like, okay, now I know you know how to do this because you showed me you know how to do it on Saturday. Like I saw you, I was working with you. So it's really great to be able to start initiatives. I also brought back summer school to my school where, you know, our ED lets me run that. I run the Saturday Academy. I'm running summer school. She's allowing me to build future community partnerships with different mentorship programs here in the city. So I just really feel like I have my hand on what's good for our kids and our school, and not even doing it for the recognition or fame. It's just I'm doing it because I know our kids deserve the best in everything that they do.
Right. And I think that's important because when I went into the episode, it was just like, you know, the importance of Black educators. Right. And I think naturally we are going to care more for people that look like us or people that come from the places that we come from. And it's not a thing like, oh, well, you know, if you don't care as much about someone that doesn't look like you, like it's a bad thing, but just naturally we care about our families. Right. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we care about people that look like our families or that maybe remind us of, you know, our families. I know for me, when I was working in education, there was like one little boy, he looked just like my brother. And I would just be like, I just had like a connection with him just because he looked like him. And it wasn't that I treated the other kids differently, but it was just because he reminded me of someone that I loved. I just had this, you know, relationship with him. So that's something that you see like in the educational, you know, field as well, where I think we do need to understand, and you have a lot of parents that are like, oh, it doesn't matter. But it's like, you know, it may matter, you know, and then when your child becomes my age, it's like, well, then we can say, well, maybe if I did have a Black teacher, if I did have this, you know, it would have been different for me. But I think it's just something to pay attention to. But I think we all have to really come together to do like a better job for our Black students, you know, and advocating, because a lot of our parents don't feel like they can advocate or that they can say things, especially if they don't see someone in the administrative position that looks like them, or if they don't see someone in the teacher position, you know, that look like them. So I think I love like what you guys are doing, because I had no idea that you know, you guys were like so involved in like the well-being of the children. And then I know you said like the kids that are there, that they have just like aspects of trauma and stuff. Is this a school where they're known for dealing with kids like that? Or is this just what you guys have?
No, this is just what we have. So this is not a specialty, but we recognized it early on that, you know, our kids are coming from some of the worst zip codes in the city. So not all of our kids live like in the perimeter of the schools. We offer buses for our students. So they come from different parts of the city, and some of those parts are rough, and, you know, they're coming from family situations that have compounded trauma. So then, even little kids, they have to internalize that some way. And sometimes it looks like I'm about to throw these chairs on the floor. I'm about to run out the school screaming and hollering. And that's what it looks like for our babies. And we picked up on that. And, my executive director is someone who started this health and wellness initiative because she was like, something's got to give. Like, we have to help our families be successful. We have to help them through their trauma. Because it's a lot. And I feel like a lot of school districts don't deal with it. They expect kids to come to school and just turn on this learning and just go. But again, and I know this from being in a public school myself, like, okay, well, if my mom had an issue the night before, we were going through some things as a family, and then I go to school the next day, I don't care about anything that's happening at school right now. Like, it doesn't make me any never mind. And I think a lot of schools have to recognize that, like, you have to service the entire child. It's not just about what they can do at school for those 8 hours, but if you cannot figure out what their foundational problem is, which is most likely some trauma that happened, maybe their dad is in jail, their mom is in jail, their grandma died, their lights got cut off the night before, like, all of those things mean something, and we take it seriously at our school. Like, we need to figure out what's really going on with you, like, holistically, before we can even get to the academic stuff. Because the academic stuff it's irrelevant. Like, when you look at those hierarchy of needs, if my basic needs are not met, I don't care anything about what we learn in ELA. It makes me no never mind.
Right. And I think it's important because sometimes we look at that and it's like, oh, well, that would never be me, or that couldn't be me because that child is coming from this zip code or this area. And it's like, if you can be full, you can be hungry. And that can alter your, the way that you're acting as an adult. I'm like, even for me as just someone, that didn't really experience too much trauma or trauma at all growing up. Right. So then when I was put into the environment where my children were experiencing it, I mean, on a daily, like, there were things that I was seeing, right? Like in the parking lot or when they were getting picked up, that was just things that I didn't have to worry about. But it's like, you talk to people about it and it's like, well, they don't understand because it's not them, or they didn't come from that. But it's like, no, you have to, listen to your kids, students, and let them tell you the story that they're experiencing. And then you kind of respond to that and show up. Because I was like, there were multiple times where I had to be sister. And because I was closer in age with my middle school students, be a big sister, be kind of like an aunt, be, a family figure first before I could even touch the board. And we had 70-minute periods. So it was just like, and then you have, over 30 kids coming in there with problems. And it's like, okay, well, clearly we're not going to get any work done. So we need to talk about whatever is going on today because y'all are, tripping. But I can see that even as someone who didn't grow up, in that space or see those things, just as a Black individual, I can see that. And then I, just sympathize with them and go, okay, well, let me show up and be here. And then for me too, I had to realize my privilege and realize that I didn't experience those things. And I think that's something we as Black people that didn't experience certain things have to get to. It's not that, oh, because you said, I'm privileged in something that's putting me closer to like white people. It's just saying you didn't have that. Yeah. So you have to come in and kind of like dial that back. I had to kind of like really learn for my students and really see like, okay, this is how things are on this side and this is how they're affected. Because I didn't go to school hungry. I didn't go to school with dirty clothes, so it's just like, listen to them and listen to what they're saying and see how you can basically be an advocate for them or love on them or get them to be more successful. So,
and that's really all it takes. And, as Black people, we're not all monolithic. We all have different dynamics and different makeups, but I think that's the dope part, that I can still go into it and empathize with these kids and sympathize with them to say, okay, well, I don't fully understand, but tell me what's going on so that I can offer you some support. Maybe you don't even want no resources. You just want me to listen. You want me to be supportive. You want me to be present in this moment. So I think just knowing what to offer to your scholars when and what they need. And it's not always I need an answer. I just need some support right now. I need you to listen to me. Because a lot of them don't feel heard. And I've never been that teacher where I'm like telling kids like, you got to do this. And because I said so, I don't even parent that way. Like if my son wants to disagree with me, okay, I want to hear what the disagreement is, what the rationale is. Like, let's talk about it. We're going to talk about it because I need him when he grows up and becomes a man, like I need him to be able to verbalize and communicate that. Like, this is how you made me feel. Yeah. This is why I feel this way. I apologize if I was wrong. And I apologize to my son and my students all the time because I'm not perfect. So I think just changing the narrative of what educators are and what they should be is definitely what I've been doing, to let them know that I'm human too, but I care about your well-being.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And we're getting ready to wrap up. So last ad space. This show is also brought to us by Urbana Goods. It's in Gardena on El Segundo and Western. It's culture, community, and convenience, from natural skincare to custom teas to exotic pop to loose leaf and CBD and more. We have goods for everyone. So you can check them out there in Gardena on El Segundo and Western. You can follow them at Urbana Goods on Instagram to go get your stuff. Super dope store. They have really dope stuff. But yeah, we are wrapping up this episode. So thank you so much, Chanel, for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This was awesome. I knew it was going to be dope because you're you. So
thank you. But let us know where we can follow you. How can we stay connected?
Absolutely. So you can definitely follow me at The Real Chanel, Chanel. Follow me there. You can also follow me at Brunch with Besties Show. You can follow us there. Tune in to us again every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Good News Network app. We would appreciate it. So thank you so much, Jazz. Thank you to your listeners. This was awesome. Hopefully you get something out of it. And to all my other Black educator teacher babes, we almost there. The school year's almost over, so hang on.
So thank you again. We are getting off, but then make sure tap in with Brunch with Besties, and then also, we'll be back every Friday at 3:30. You can tune in and see what we have going on. But that's it. So y'all, thank you again, Chanel.
Thank you.
Without the power of God behind everything I do, I really am completely inadequate.
I'm helping the culture. These guys are part of us as well. These are guys of our cousin. I'm helping the culture. I'm pushing the culture forward in another way.
Hey, Black child, be what you can be. Learn